These, as you can see, are Tesla Model 3s. They've just arrived in the UK. They're right-hand drive. They're being delivered to the first customers who booked these cars and paid deposits literally years ago. Hello. Now this is going to be a slightly unusual episode of Fully Charged simply because I can't go anywhere. I can't drive anywhere, just like everybody else in the country. So what I've done is I've taken the Tesla Model 3 all-wheel drive, long-range, not performance model that I drive, this car. I've taken it for a long spin, almost 25 metres into my garden. Because I want to talk about what this car has been like to drive for the first 10,000 miles. It's just done just over 10,000 miles now. I've had a good few months. And so that is what I'm doing. So this is the Tesla Model 3 and this is Fully Charged. Let me think about this, because I do really love this car, and the whole point of this is not to be a Tesla fanboy, which I really don't want to be, because there are other cars that are being made now. Some of them are fantastic, some of them are just, there's some things wrong with the Tesla Model 3, and I want to go do the negatives first. A lot of people have talked about the body panels, the fit and finish of the Tesla Model 3. I am the worst person to ask about that, because a lot of people will look at the gaps there, you know, between the doors and the bodywork, or here there's a big gap there. That could upset some people. It has zero emotional effect on me of any sort. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. If water doesn't leak in and it goes all soggy and horrible inside, I'm not bothered. But some people get upset about that. So that is a possible negative. From my point of view, it's still quite a big car. I would much prefer a smaller car. You know, I don't need a car this big. When I'm driving on my own, I always feel embarrassed driving a big car, even though it's electric, and even though there is no question now that an electric car is cleaner over its lifetime, including the manufacture and the disposal of it, than any petrol or diesel car. Just thought I'd throw that in there for good measure. Now, the only other negative thing that happened up here. About, I'm trying to remember when it was, probably 4 months ago. I did hear a crack when I was driving along, like a cracking sound, like a tick, like a very sudden noise as I was driving along a very smooth road, not with busy traffic or anything. Didn't know what it was, didn't take any notice of it because the car seemed absolutely fine. I just went, I don't know what that is, but you carry on driving. Nothing fell off, so it looked all right. So it was a couple of days later that I was looking in the rearview mirror and I saw this line going across this window. And I went, what's that line? So then I did stop. I got out and I looked, and it was a crack. The whole of this back window had cracked right across there. Not from an impact, or not from a stone hitting it or anything. Not like on a windscreen when that gets hit by a stone. It just had gone, it had just cracked. This is a piece of glass that goes from there right up to here. It's basically half the roof as well as the rear window. So it's quite a big chunky thing. So I took it into Tesla and they fixed it without any discussion at all, and apparently there was a batch of Model 3s, which this one is clearly one of, that had that happen a couple of times. I reckon it was temperature. It was when it was very cold, and it might have been when I turned you know, this has got window heaters in it and the interior of the car was warm. It might have been, I don't know. It was really odd. It wasn't from an impact, that's all I know. So there's that. I'm doing the negatives. So that definitely happened. This bit here, this lid, I just want to call it the lid, this lifting cover, because there's so many different names for it: the boot, the fruit, the front, the trunk, the back. So we call it a boot in the UK. You can call it a trunk if you like. I don't mind at all. When it's raining heavily, if there's a lot of rain on here already, and then there's a lot of rain on that, as you lift it up, all the rain that's on here can tip down onto there, splush, and then it can go splush over. But it doesn't go splush over like a wave, it's like a few drips. So I have had that happen. I've had a bag with clothes in there that got some drips of water on it when I lifted that up. I was livid, I was fuming. I went, Tesla, you're rubbish for doing that. I didn't really care, it wasn't that bad. But I find that the very traditional, old-fashioned boot really reminds me of the cars my dad had when I was a kid, because it's quite a deep thing. And you know, you can put the seats down. I've put longer things in, but putting bikes in and things like that, it's It's quite difficult. And you know, a big tailgate is so much easier to deal with, which is what the Model Y has. But to be perfectly honest, I'm happy with this. It doesn't restrict me at all. It's absolutely fine. So really, it does depend on the time of year, the terrain that you're driving over, the weather. Because what I've now had this long enough to kind of get a good feel for how much energy it really uses. So in the middle of winter, we've had a very mild winter, but it's been very wet, really, really wet this year. If you're driving along a really rain-soaked road, that reduces your range. So I'm doing about, I would say, 3.5, and if I'm really careful, 3 3/4 miles to the kilowatt hour in winter, and over 5 in summer. And it's now made me realise when I drive other electric cars how incredibly good that is. You know, that is an incredible energy efficiency. To get a car this size and this weight to do 5 miles on a kilowatt hour of energy, when you know, you've got to remember you can pay, even if you're buying electricity. I mean, you know, this car is charged with solar at the moment. Don't need to pay for anything. But if you think that at night time, if you're charging at night time on off-peak tariff, you know, from 5 to 10p a kilowatt hour, you're talking a car this size doing a penny a mile, really, 1.5 pence a mile. The cheapest, smallest, most super efficient, tiny little diesel or petrol car is 10 to 15 pence a mile. Most cars, 25 pence. Range Rover Sport, I just want to say, is 55 pence a mile to drive that wretched thing. What it does have, which works brilliantly, is cruise control. So that is like you driving along on a motorway, you're steering, but the car speeds up and slows down according to what's in front of it. And that works faultlessly. I've never had any problem with that, either in the Model S that I had before this or the Model 3. Both those cars, this works really, really well. It is an excellent system. The autopilot, so the auto steer, really, I'd call it auto steer. It does work on this one, but we have named this car Timiddy because he's a little bit timid. I think he's a boy, but he's a timid boy, and I like timid boys. Timid boys are much nicer than really aggressive, violent boys, but he's quite timid. So sometimes he'll be going along a perfectly, you know, clear road with no hazards in the way, and then there's a big truck coming the other way, and it goes, and it sort of pulls over and slows down, and that's kind of annoying when you know there's really no danger on a big wide A road. There's a truck coming the other way, but it's on the other side of the road. You're on this side. It's fine. That is kind of annoying. So I don't use that very much. I just use the cruise control, which is so much better to use. All the other stuff, I don't want to rave on about it, but the sat nav is amazing. It's so easy to use. It's so clear. It's Google Maps. But what really, really sets this car apart is the supercharger network. 200, I've never seen this before. 246, 248, 248, 250! Okay, so what I've done here is just put in a supercharger, one that I could get to at the moment. So Stoke-on-Trent, just on the M6 outside Stoke-on-Trent. It's 105 miles from where I am now. It will take me 2 hours and 8 minutes to get there. So and it tells me what time I get there, about 5, nearly 6 o'clock. So what I can do then is, when you're doing a journey like this, particularly if it's one you don't know about, and you can't quite work out how careful you've got to be. If you turn on the energy, that shows you how much energy you've used in the journey to now, which is useful, and that's quite good to have. And you know, it tells you what your average is. So 300 miles range, 299 miles range is the average for me. But this is what is really good. So I've now got 59% in the batteries at the moment. If I drive 105 miles to Stoke-on-Trent, I'll have 18%. So it's just getting into the yellowy bit where it starts to warn you, look how long the yellowy bit lasts, 18%. You've still got 60, 65 miles range after that. So it really isn't a worry. But that is so good. When I've done really long journeys, that has been phenomenal, really useful. There was a time when I was in France in the Model S, it has exactly the same software. We were nearly at 100%, we were like 98% because we charged overnight. And where we were going, the next supercharger was like here. So you could really see it drop down, and it was saying, be careful. But here's another interesting thing. You might see right here, that line first of all, is kind of almost going up. Well, it is, it's going up first, and then it goes down steadily. That is because we live at the top of quite a big hill. So the first 10 miles, I can do that first 10 miles on so little electricity, regenerating a lot going down the hill, and then it's a very slight slope for a long way. So in fact, I'd end up at the bottom of the hill with probably 62% of the battery. So that gives me a little bit of extra work. But it knows that. It knows the route. It knows the topography that we're traveling on. That is unbelievable. But what I want to show you is the charging network. Okay, so those are all these ones that are in dark red here, clear. Those are all the superchargers I can reach at the moment from where I am now. So clearly I couldn't go without stopping. I couldn't get up to the north of England and then Glasgow, then Edinburgh, then Dundee, then the middle of Scotland. That's Inverness. That there is the Aviemore supercharger, which I have used once. So at Oxford Services, there's 16 stalls, 30, and it tells you how many are available now. So there's 13 available now. Tells you what the charging fees are, 24 pence a kilowatt hour. If you idle, if you sit there without charging and you get charged 70 pence a minute, which is right, get your car out the way, let other people use it. That's the whole point. But then if you go out again, so ignore that. So I could say I supercharged here, that is Maidstone. There's 6 stalls there, they're all available, so I could use that. Charge up there, I could then go over to Calais on the tunnel, which is what I've done before. And all these places, you'll start to see them. Look at all those chargers in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in France, in the Czech Republic, in Poland, in Austria, Switzerland, everywhere. Right down here to Italy, you can go all the way down to Sicily. In Spain, you can go all the way down to Malaga, on Gibraltar, Seville, in Portugal, it's all over Portugal. So there is nowhere now in Europe, particularly if you want to go north as well. People don't often look, but I have spent a lot of time in Norway and right up here in the Arctic Circle, in Sweden and Norway. Look how far up there, that one, that is extraordinary. There is one supercharger, that is 1,432 miles from me. It cost 1.64 Norwegian kroner, 1.64 to a kilowatt hour. I've no idea what that is, but I bet it's a lot of money because everything in Norway is a lot of money. But isn't that amazing that you can get that far? So you could drive, and people have done it. I'm not going to do it now, but people have done it. You're in the proper Arctic Circle here, minus 35, minus 40 degrees centigrade. What is amazing is, though, you could drive all the way from right up there in the north of Norway, all the way down, if you wanted to. I mean, you'd be bonkers, all the way down to Malaga. I think that's about the furthest south. Actually, that one there, that's a long way south. Just outside Cadiz, that's where you want to go. You want to go to Cadiz. Amazing. I've been to Faro. I've done a couple of shows in Faro, and that supercharger I've never used in Portugal. I wish I could. So yeah, that is remarkable. So at the moment, we can't go anywhere, but isn't that amazing? That network is incredibly reliable. So overall, it's very difficult not to be incredibly impressed by what this company has achieved, not just with the vehicles, with the charging infrastructure, with everything else they're doing around energy, renewable energy, recycling. All those things are extraordinary. You know, it really is, it's very hard not to be impressed. And all I can say is I'm actually, one of the things I'm looking forward to when we are finally unleashed from our voluntary and very, very important isolation. Don't get me wrong, I'm not dismissing it. I think it's vitally important. That's how some of us are going to be able to survive. It's really horrendous what we're all going through at the moment, but I don't want to dwell on that. But one of the things I'm looking forward to is driving my Tesla Model 3. It's pathetic, it's childish, I know, but that's the way it is. It is just an amazing and remarkable car. That's all I really wanted to say. Please do subscribe to Fully Charged. We will be doing a lot of shows, as I've said many times this year, that will be a lot more highly produced than this. But I've had fun doing this one. I hope you've had fun watching it. You know, please have a look at the little Patreon link underneath this video, because that is a very vitally important part of the whole infrastructure of Fully Charged. And well, as always, if you have been, thank you for watching.